Alright, so I want to make a video updating everyone as usual, as well as getting to some other important stuff. And there is some big stories that actually came out a day or two ago, but I still want to get into them because they're important. So getting right into it here, Canada's up to 49,179 cases, with 2771 dead. Alberta had 154 new cases yesterday, which is the lowest we've had in, I think, over a week now. So that's a very good sign. Alberta's up to 4,850 cases with 80 dead, 1,800 recovered cases with 138,681 completed tests. So the first thing I wanted to point out here is that I seen on the CBC yesterday that the new projections show about, I believe, 3,300 to about 3,800 deaths. Again, don't quote me on those exact numbers, but I know on the low end it was 32 to 3,300 dead is the projections by May 5th. So we're talking about a week from now, which means we're going to need about, I don't know, 100, just under 100 people, a little under 100 people a day to die roughly. I believe April has 30 days in it, so that's 6, 7 days from now. So pretty much exactly a week. So we will see how that goes. Again, I think we'll come a little bit under those projections, but again, we'll see. And those are projections that literally project like a week out. So if we're under those projections, then really, I don't have words. And it's like I mentioned too, Alberta, some other provinces are coming out with their plans now. Quebec plans to start reopening stuff in May. I think May 11th is when they plan on opening some stores, and then some other stuff, after that. So that's the thing I wanted to point out here is that if Quebec can reopen some things, and they're the province that's hit the hardest, if not the hardest, then actually I believe it is the hardest hit province, then why can't Alberta open? I mean, why can't BC open? Why can't, I mean, Saskatchewan's already got their plan in place, but again, this doesn't make any sense too. And I really need to call out Kenny and the UCP that the fact that they don't really have a clear plan on this, it really boggles my mind. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Now, I know that when they reopen things, inevitably there'll be problems. There'll be an increase in cases no matter what you do. And people, the vicious, leftist crowd, which if you're from Alberta, you're well aware of it. I mean, every province has it, but Alberta, they're kind of unique. They'll be, oh, Kenny is killing people and all this kind of crap that they'll bring up. So I understand the reluctance, but more people are dying and are going to die, and definitely suffering than by keeping this closed. I mean, we still haven't had 100 people die of this yet, and yet we have. I mean, how many people do we have die in car accidents over a 2 month period? Like, I mean, we have way more die of other causes. Like, if we put this time and effort into something else, it would make a lot more of a difference. And that's, like I said, the one thing that to bring up too is that um, I don't really want to harp on the Liberals, at least not right now, in that Alberta needs to reopen. Again, the overwhelming majority of deaths were in nursing homes. People under the age of like 50 to 60 literally have nothing to worry about. We're talking north of a 99.9% chance of living if you get this. The overwhelming majority won't even have symptoms, or at the very least, like very mild cold symptoms. So this whole idea of keeping things closed, it doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The hospitals are nowhere near overwhelmed, even in the worst hit areas. Like, I seen a story the other day, I'm going to talk about it, but a doctor in New York says, yeah, we need to reopen things, and this is the worst hit area in all of North America, and yet you have doctors saying, yeah, we can reopen, no problem. So this keeping things closed, there's clearly um, other things at play here. The government clearly has other intentions. The whole we need to keep people safe and prevent people from dying narrative isn't holding up anymore. It doesn't make any sense anymore. If they actually cared about this kind of stuff, like I said, the solution is so simple. It's a win-win for both sides. It's the simplest thing. You reopen, If you want to do it in steps, then whatever. But I mean, I don't see any real reason to do that. I mean, if it was me, I would just say, okay, we can't have very large gatherings. That's basically the only restriction I would put in place off the start. But we reopen, you keep you quarantine old folks' homes. Like, I mean, quarantine the you know what out of that. Like, you want that to be airtight because you don't want people dying. You give people the option of staying home. So anybody who's older, who's afraid, who's in the, oh, we need to keep things locked down or we're all going to die crowd, you give those kind of people the option to stay home. It's a win-win. And anybody who's in the we need to keep things locked down or we're all going to die crowd who doesn't agree with that just goes to show you have no credibility whatsoever. No credibility. You just want to control other people. You're an authoritarian. You just want more socialist authoritarian BS. Like, let's just be honest. Your chances of getting things, if the economy's reopened, is pretty much the exact same as if the economy's wide open and you stay home, you continue to quarantine, than if we reopen and you continue to quarantine. The differences are almost minuscule. If you're paranoid, go ahead, stay home. Nobody's forcing you to go back to work if you don't want to. But everybody who wants to should be able to. And anybody who, and again, I'd like to hear an actual argument against that kind of thing. All ever really get is BS, snarky comments. So again, I'm not even going to acknowledge it if it's not an actual argument. Like, if you want to come up with an argument, go ahead. But the BS, snarky stuff, again, not going to put up with that. Um, this is from the Post Millennial, and it's titled "Trudeau Government's Failure on Medical Supplies Cost Taxpayers $500 million." Now, I'm not going to. I mean, you can see the article, but I'm not going to read it. You can go just search it up if you really want to read it. But in essence, the fact that the government got rid of our medical supplies, didn't restock it, in other words, cost us a lot of money, because the cost of medical supplies in a time like this, yeah, it goes through the roof, as you can imagine. So again, the this is something that I think is sheer incompetence. I think that most of the stuff that the Trudeau government and whatnot does is because they have bad intentions, but stuff like this, I believe, is just sheer incompetence. Um, and the idea doesn't, and the fact that they gave a bunch of it to China too, it's just a cherry on top for just how bad they've handled this kind of stuff. So again, just wanted to point that out for all the people concerned about not having enough money for your socialist utopia. Well, this is money we could have had for your socialist utopia. Anyway, this is from Maxime Bernier. He goes on to say, cancer diagnoses are down 30 to 40% in Quebec. Thousands of people will not find out until they have cancer until it's too late. The lockdown and other extreme measures we are taking to fight the virus may end up killing more people than they save. Now, again, I've pointed this out time and time again, and people just don't listen. It doesn't make any sense. Again, they're just more worried about their tribalism and their BS. Like, I mean, my mind has changed a decent amount when it came to this. Like, off the start, I was, reluctantly on board with this whole lockdown. That's partially because I believed, even though the overwhelming majority of people did, to be fair, but believed that this was, a disease or a virus where 5% of people, 4 or 5% of people are going to die if they get it, which is relatively serious. But now we're at 0.2% and less than 0.1 if you're young and healthy. So this is something that it goes to show there's no reason to keep things locked down, no reason whatsoever. There's, like I say, I've already made the prediction. I'm going to keep reiterating it because again, people just seem to in one ear and out the other with them, that more people are going to. I think it's at the point where far more people are going to die, far more people are going to suffer greatly because the lockdowns happen than not. Again, the data we know now, the lockdowns never even should have happened in the first place. And the fact that they're still going on, even after knowing that, just goes to show that there's clearly sinister motives going on. Now, I'm going to make a video about one of the person in the Liberal government's sinister motives tomorrow, but like I said, there's clearly other things at play here because there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to keep things closed down. Like I said, the solution is it's so blatantly obvious and simple that anybody's still thinking that it's a good thing, like I say, your ability to critically think is non-existent. Like non-existent. Like I said, quarantine the old, give people who are in the, keep things closed or we're all going to die crowd the option to stay home, and the problem is solved. It is a win-win for everybody. It's such a simple solution, it's not even funny. And governments are just resistant to it. And like I say, the UCP and Jason Kenney in Alberta is in that group. So got to call them out too. Like I'm gonna keep harping on them too, just as much as the Trudeau government too, because I mean it's the Trudeau government's fault that it got so bad in Canada, but it's also the Alberta government. And like I say, we have a pretty we had even a weaker economy than most of the rest of Canada, and we're going to be walking out of this with double-digit unemployment rates. Um, Oil and gas is at an all-time low, or at least a all-time low, at least in most people's, at least in my life, and probably most people's life for that fact. So this is something that we're going to really struggle with. And then this is the main reason why I support reopening, is that people don't realize just how much we're going to struggle coming out of this. The keep things closed, we're all going to die crowd almost always has the light switch fallacy that, oh, we can just flip the economy on and off like it's a light switch. That's not how it works. When we turn it back on, it is going to struggle massively, like massively. We're going to have well into the double digit unemployment rates still. Massive amounts of businesses are going to shut down. And like I said, I think the government, I mean, the federal government especially, doesn't care about this kind of stuff. Like, they don't care because they know they're going to get reelected. And they know that when these problems inevitably come up, well, guess what? A lot of people are going to just call for socialism and they'll be fully on board. Oh, we have 20% unemployment. People can't afford their bills. Oh, we need to bring in a UBI. Oh, how convenient that these socialist policies are going to, it's problem reaction solution. The government creates a problem, they offer the solution, and people eat it up. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words. Now, again, could I be wrong about this? Absolutely, I could be wrong. But again, like I said, we're at the point to where keeping the economy closed at this point doesn't make any sense whatsoever, which means by default, the government clearly has other intentions that they're trying to ram through. They're trying to convince the public. So this is also from Maxime Bernier. He goes on to say about 75-80% of COVID deaths in Quebec and Ontario are seniors in long-term care homes. If there are two separate worlds, then why don't we focus on protecting vulnerable seniors and let everyone else go back to work? Now, um, I've talked about this enough, but again, I just wanted to point this out. Like the the amount of the obviousness of the solution to this, it really just blows my mind at people. Like, blows my mind. Like, you look on social media and people are just clueless, like so clueless that like I say too, that like I say, um, when we go back, things are going to struggle massively, like massively, like people just don't seem to grasp that kind of stuff. And it's because people nowadays, it's just all what's in front of us in the here and now. Like, what's in front of us in the here and now. Like, planning ahead, who cares about planning ahead? Like, why do we need to plan ahead? And like I said, that's the problem, that we're going to be facing a massive problem coming out of this. And the longer we keep things locked down, the worse it's going to be. The last thing I wanted to point out here is this doctor from California has gone viral over the last few days, basically talking about how, I mean, number one, it's the virus is largely overblown. The death rates are much lower than we originally thought, even recently originally thought, not when we first locked things down. And he goes, I mean, he says too, he's an ICU doctor, and they're having to shut down floors because there's literally nobody there. Like, there's literally nobody there. So again, the whole reason for the lockdown was the hospitals are going to be over. This was the pretty much the only reason. Like, other than that, there wasn't a good reason whatsoever to lock things down. The only reason even close to being valid for shutting things down was the hospitals will be overwhelmed if we don't do it. The hospitals are not even close to overwhelmed, therefore keeping things closed doesn't make any sense. And like I say, the problem is the government and a lot of these people, sheeple, are still buying into the fear mongering that this is the doomsday virus and we need to keep things locked down. So um, like I say, go check that out. And just the fact that YouTube censored it just goes to show that it's probably good information. So again, I mean, you can just search the guy. His name is Dr. Erickson, I believe. So go check him out there. I mean, you'll be able to find videos. I mean, this guy retweeted it. He's got over 2,000 retweets, 48,000 views. So it's not hard to find. Go check that out. And again, he just points out that even in New York, the death rate, which is again the worst hit area, I mean, arguably in the world, it may even be the worst hit, at least city in the world. And I mean, other than maybe Wuhan, but we don't know the area. We don't know the official rates for there. We don't even know the official rates for New York because there's so many asymptomatic people. But um, even the death rates in New York is very low. So again, um, I don't want to keep talking about this. Like they say, the minute that things are back to, I mean, they're never going to be back to normal, but the minute the economy is reopened, and like I mean actually reopened, not a select few businesses can reopen, only 5 people can come and they have to have masks and they have to follow this regulation and that regulation, until things are as close to back to normal as realistically can happen, I'm going to keep harping on this because, like I say, massive amounts of people are suffering, although just to prevent the suffering of a very select few minority of people. So anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you'd like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last thing, as always, check out my BitChute channel as well.